In 2045, Earth was facing an unprecedented energy crisis. Fossil fuels were running out, and renewable energy sources were insufficient to meet the growing demand. It was in this desperate scenario that the International Space Agency, ISA, launched an ambitious mission. An expedition to the distant planet Elysium 7, which promised vast reserves of a rare mineral known as Vortelium, essential for the production of clean energy. Commander Alex Torres, an experienced and respected astronaut, was chosen to lead the mission. He had trained for years for this opportunity, but the responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Alongside him were systems engineer Lisa, biologist Sarah, and geologist Marco. They were all specialists in their fields, but also friends, making the mission both an adventure and a challenge. After months of preparation, the team boarded the ship Odyssey. The launch was exhilarating, with the sensation of breaking free from Earth's gravity and launching into the unknown. During the journey, amidst conversations and laughter, Alex felt hopeful. They were about to make history. The journey lasted about 6 months. During this time, the team adapted to life aboard. They conducted experiments, trained for emergency situations, and shared stories about their lives on Earth. However, a sense of unease began to arise. The ship encountered some cosmic storms, and the instruments started to exhibit intermittent failures. Lisa, the engineer, tried to restore the systems, but the space radiation seemed to interfere with everything. Finally, after a grueling journey, the Odyssey arrived at Elysium 7. Looking out the window, Alex was amazed. The planet had a majestic appearance, with vast stretches of desert and rock formations rising like towers against a reddish sky. The team was excited. Exploration was about to begin. As soon as they landed, the team initiated safety protocols and began to disembark the ship. The ground was rough and hot beneath their feet. As they prepared to explore, Alex felt a wave of emotion mixed with apprehension. It was uncharted territory where every step could reveal something new or dangerous. During the first few days, the team set up camp and began collecting samples. But soon they noticed that the environment was different from what they had expected. The air had a metallic and heavy smell, and strange rock formations seemed to move, as if they were creatures watching the intruders. Soon, problems began. The communication instruments failed, and the radiation on the planet appeared to interfere with the equipment. The team tried to remain calm, but the feeling of disorientation increased. At night, as they gathered around the campfire, Alex noticed that the voices of his friends were quieter, as if the space around them was absorbing their energies. After a week of exploration on Elysium 7, Alex's team began to feel increasingly uncomfortable. The tension was palpable, and the whispers of radiation reflected their own fears. Despite this, curiosity drove them forward, and they decided to venture even further in search of answers. One day, while exploring a mountainous region, they discovered an ancient structure half buried in the sand. It was an imposing construction, with stone walls carved into complex geometric shapes. The marks on the surface were symbolic, and the structure was shrouded in an aura of mystery. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Something about this place unsettled him. "Are you seeing this?" Marco asked, admiring the intricate sculptures. "It looks like an ancient city. This isn't in our data." Sarah, always the most cautious of the group, hesitated. "We should be careful. We don't know what could be here." Despite the hesitation, the team decided to enter the structure. As they passed through the entrance, they were greeted by a dark, narrow corridor, where the walls were covered with more symbols and images. Some seemed to depict humanoid beings with large empty eyes, while others showed scenes of struggle and despair. As they ventured deeper, the temperature began to drop, and a sense of oppression filled the atmosphere. It was as if the very place was alive, watching them. Alex felt a shiver, but tried to ignore it. "Let's keep going. We need to understand what this is." In the center of the structure, they found a large room, illuminated by a faint light that seemed to come from an unknown source. In the middle of the room was a kind of altar covered in dust and debris. On top of it, a hologram began to form, revealing images of strange and distorted beings interspersed with flashes of a cosmic battle. "I feel like I've seen this somewhere," Lisa murmured, looking at the images. "These beings, They're like the ones we saw on the walls. Suddenly, voices began to emerge, whispering in a low, desperate tone. They were indistinct, but Alex could swear he heard his name among the murmurs. The environment became oppressive, and the feeling that they were being watched intensified. "Is anyone else hearing this?" Marco said, his voice trembling. "Yes, but it's not just you," Sarah replied, panic in her eyes. It's like we're being called." The team decided to quickly exit the structure, but when they turned around, they realized the way back was different. The corridors seemed to twist and change, as if the very construction was alive and holding them captive. "This isn't good. We need to get back to the ship," Alex said, but anxiety grew. The voices became louder, more insistent, as if they were clamoring for attention. Desperate, they ran through the corridors, but the feeling of disorientation increased with every step. The place was turning into a labyrinth, and the darkness seemed to close in, swallowing their hopes. Finally, they managed to find the exit, but as they emerged from the structure, they were breathless and panicked. In the sky, the red light seemed more intense, as if the planet itself was reacting to their presence. "We need some time to process this," Lisa said, trying to regain her composure. But Alex knew something was wrong. The structure was not just an abandoned city. It was a place of power, and they had awakened something that should have remained undisturbed. As they moved away, the echo of the whispers still reverberated in their minds, leaving a sense that the true mission had only just begun. The days following the encounter at the ancient structure were marked by increasing tension among the team members. Despite having returned to the safety of the camp, the feeling that something was watching them was never absent. Alex tried to keep morale high, but each of them carried the weight of the recent experience, pressing down on them like a shadow. On the morning of the 5th day after the exploration, Marco, the geologist, was the first to disappear. He had gone out to collect soil samples at a safe distance from the base, but by afternoon, when he had not returned, the team began to panic. Alex organized a search, and everyone dispersed, calling his name. But there was no response. Despair set in when he realized that Marco's radio was not working. "I think we need to consider the possibility that he may no longer be alive," said Sarah, the biologist, her words heavy as lead. "We can't stay here. We need to go back to the ship." But Alex couldn't give up on Marco. "He might be lost. Let's go to his last known location and look for him." When they reached the place where Marco had last been seen, they found only his tools left behind, and a deafening silence. The feeling of being watched intensified. It was as if the planet itself was laughing at their search, mocking their vulnerability. After hours of fruitless searching, the team decided to return to the base. But the atmosphere was charged with tension. With each step, a sense of despair grew. That night, as they tried to rest, nightmares began. Alex dreamed of Marco, his distorted figure appearing in the darkness. He was surrounded by shadows, and the voices whispered promises of power and knowledge. When Alex tried to approach, the figure faded away, and he woke with a start, his heart racing. The next morning, the situation worsened. Sarah, visibly shaken, began to talk about visions. She claimed to have seen Marco in the distance, but when she ran to reach him, he disappeared. "He was calling me, Alex. He was there," she said, tears in her eyes. "We can't let this affect us," Alex replied, trying to be the voice of reason. But with each passing day, the team became more isolated and distrustful. The voices became a constant presence, whispering secrets and distorting their perceptions. On the 3rd night after Marco's disappearance, Sarah also vanished. Alex and Lisa woke to find her tent empty, with her equipment left behind. Desperate, they tried to track her footsteps, but the darkness seemed to swallow everything around them, and the whispers became a deafening chorus. "We need to get back to the ship now," Lisa said, her voice trembling with fear. "This isn't normal. Something is wrong with this place." Alex agreed. "Let's go. We have to get out of here." But as they were about to leave the camp, they heard a scream. It was Sarah. The sound echoed through the desolate barrier, and fear took hold of Alex. They ran toward the scream, but when they arrived, all that greeted them was sand stirred by the wind. There was no sign of Sarah, just silence and shadows dancing around them. A sense of despair and helplessness enveloped them. Now Alex was alone with Lisa, and the reality of what was happening began to become clear. Something malevolent was feeding on their anxieties, turning their fears into a deadly trap. "We need to warn Earth," Alex said, his voice firm but uncertainty in his eyes. "If we don't manage to do this, no one will know what happened here." But when he tried to access the communication equipment, he realized there were malfunctions. All they could do was wait, each second dragging on like an eternity as the voices continued to call to them, and the darkness around them grew increasingly oppressive. With only Alex and Lisa remaining, the situation became unsustainable. The pressure of the place and the weight of their losses began to erode Alex's sanity. The whispering voices only intensified, echoing in his mind like a sinister mantra. He knew he needed to find a way out, but as the shadows drew closer, hope began to slip away. One night while they were trying to rest, Alex had a disturbing vision. He dreamed he was back in the ancient structure, in the center of the illuminated room. The hologram that had previously shown the distorted faces of his friends now displayed images of a cosmic battle, beings fighting against a force of darkness. Amid the chaos, he recognized a familiar figure. It was Marco, his expression one of despair and pain. He woke with a start, his heart racing. "Lisa, you need to hear this," he said, trying to organize his thoughts. "These visions, I think they mean something." "Mean something?" Lisa replied, skeptical yet curious. "What do you mean?" "I think the structure is connected to all of this. The disappearances, the voices. Maybe it's a trap, a way to feed something. We need to go back there and understand what's happening." Lisa hesitated, but she agreed. "If this is true, we need to find out how to stop it before it's too late." The next morning, with heavy hearts, they made their way back to the structure. As they approached, the atmosphere seemed to change. The air felt denser, and the energy around them pulsed with a palpable intensity. When they entered, the environment fell silent, as if waiting for their arrival. In the center of the room, the altar was now covered in a dark mist, and the hologram began to form again, this time revealing scenes of a dark past. Humanoid beings, similar to those they had seen on the walls, were being consumed by shadows. The voices turned into screams of agony, and Alex realized they were witnessing the fall of a civilization. This can't be possible," Lisa murmured, horrified. "They were all consumed." "We need to find out how this happened," Alex said, his determination renewed. "Maybe there's a way to break this cycle." While examining the altar, Alex found a strange object, a pulsating crystal that seemed to vibrate with its own energy. As soon as he touched it, a wave of pain coursed through his body, and visions began to flood his mind. He saw the city at its height, the beings happy, and then the darkness approaching, swallowing everything. "Alex!" Lisa called, but he was trapped in his visions, absorbing it all. He saw the source of the whispers, a being of pure darkness, an entity that fed on fear and pain, imprisoning the souls of those who dared to enter. With monumental effort, Alex managed to free himself from the vision. "Lisa, we need to destroy this," he exclaimed, holding the crystal. "This place feeds on us. It needs to be stopped." But before he could act, the voices became a deafening scream, and shadows gathered around them. The distorted figures of their missing companions emerged, pleading for help, but also threatening. "You cannot escape," the voices echoed, and the room began to tremble. "You belong to us." Alex and Lisa looked at each other, determination in their eyes. "We can't let this happen," Alex said. He knew the only way to free the souls and close the portal was to make a sacrifice. "Let's activate the self-destruction of the structure," he suggested. "It's the only way to end this." "But what if it doesn't work?" Lisa said, her voice trembling. "We have to try. If we don't do this, we'll lose everything." With the crystal in hand, Alex and Lisa ran to the control panel. As the shadows approached, they began to activate the self-destruction systems. The room started to glow, and the voices became screams of despair. "Free yourselves!" Alex shouted, looking at the distorted figures. "I promise you won't be trapped here forever." The shadows hesitated, and a sudden silence filled the environment. Alex knew he had to give everything he had. He connected to the system, feeling his life energy being drained as the lights flickered. With one last effort, he activated the self-destruction process. A wave of light exploded through the room, and the shadows were thrown back, screaming in agony. Alex and Lisa felt a powerful force pushing them, but they stood firm, determined to fight to the end. The explosion was deafening. The ground shook beneath Alex and Lisa as the ancient structure collapsed around them. The shadows, now in despair, seemed to writhe and scream, their forms dissipating in the intense light that surrounded them. Alex felt the vital energy being drained from his body, but the determination in his heart remained unshakable. He knew he had to do this to free the trapped souls.
"Alex, we can't!" Lisa shouted, trying to grab his arm as the light intensified. "We're going to die here!"
"No," Alex replied, his voice firm. "If we don't do this, we'll be consumed forever. We have to end this." With one last look, Alex remembered Marco and Sarah. He had to do this for them, for all who had suffered in that place. With a colossal effort, he focused on the energy of the crystal he had found, feeling its power pulse in tune with the light around him. "Free yourselves," he shouted again, directing his words at the shadows. "You don't have to be trapped anymore. We're here to end this pain." The distorted voices began to calm, and the figures that had once been threatening started to dissolve into light. Alex felt a wave of relief, but there was no time to waste. The structure was collapsing, and the light was becoming almost unbearable. "Alex, let's go!" Lisa pleaded, her tears shining. "We can still escape." He hesitated for a moment, but the vision of his friends urged him on. "We can't let this happen again. We need to ensure that no one else goes through this." With one last push, Alex channeled all his energy into the crystal, feeling his body start to fade. The light around them erupted in a wave of heat and energy, and in an instant, everything transformed into a blinding glow. Then everything went dark. Alex awoke in a field of stars, floating in a vast and tranquil space. He looked around, confused, but soon realized he was not alone. The souls of Marco, Sarah, and the others were there, surrounding him in a soft and comforting light. "You saved us," Marco said, his voice echoing like a melody. "Thank you, Alex." I don't know what happened," Alex replied, still dazed. "I couldn't escape." "You did more than that," Sarah added, her expression serene. "You freed us. Now we can rest." Alex felt a wave of peace wash over him. The pain and despair he had carried dissipated, and he realized that, although his physical body was lost, his essence was now free. The weight of responsibility had been lifted. "But what about the ship and Lisa?" he asked, concern returning. "She's safe," Marco said. "We protected her. What you did broke the cycle. No one else will suffer like we suffered." As the souls danced around him, Alex felt a deep connection with all of them. He had given everything he had, and now he felt their gratitude like a light wrapping around him. Together, they were stronger.